These spells in Baldur's Gate 3 are so terrible it just simply makes you cry when you use them. In this video we're going to go over these spells and more importantly dissect why they're so terrible. Starting off with Witch Bolt. Initially Witch Bolt sounds decent. It does lightning damage and lightning is a great source of damage in Baldur's Gate 3 because it can be doubled against any enemy in quite an easy way just by making your targets wet before you blast them. So a lot of damage potential to be found there. However, this synergy and setting up Witch Bolt can absolutely not save it from being on this list. Why, you ask? Because on its own it's similar to the damage of a cantrip, even though it's a spell and thus consumes a spell slot. But what makes it truly bad is that it's a concentration spell. The reason why it's a concentration spell is because every turn you can recast it again, but here comes the kicker: if you use it in its regular form, it has the damage of a cantrip like I already said, but if you up-level your Witch Bolt, your initial cast will be of the higher level, but all the subsequent casts will have the damage of a level 1 Witch Bolt, while consuming your action every turn and taking the slot of your concentration spell. The spell actively preventing you from using one of the many actual good concentration spells in the game, and then simultaneously having absolute horrible damage is a recipe for disaster. Can it get any worse? Yes, Phantasmal Force. Repeat those two words 10 times in succession and you will have activated an ancient Egyptian curse that will destroy humanity as we know it. Apply everything I just said to Witch Bolt, remove any potential minor positives, multiply it by 2 and you have this abomination. Literally, it's half of Witch Bolt's damage, but at the same time it's a higher level spell as well. And then at that, it's a concentration spell as well. While Witch Bolt might still compare to a cantrip and has some niche uses, this thing doesn't even do any of that, and instead it compares to dog shite. Its type of damage changing to the last type the creature suffered is a potentially cool mechanic to abuse weaknesses, but it needs to have its damage ramped up significantly for it ever to be relevant. The icing on the cake is that you need to have a successful saving throw every single time you get hit to even maintain this type of terrible damage, which means half of the time it won't be even active. And if you thought it couldn't get any worse, well yes, you can't upcast it either, so you're stuck with this 1-6 damage forever. Phantasmal Force, more like Phantasmal Farce. A spell so bad that it's hard to find something worse. But hey, a wild Conjuring Barrage appeared. A wisdom scaling level 3 spell that is exclusive for rangers, a class that generally will never have high levels of wisdom. What could go wrong, one might ask? The fact that you get something so bad at level 9 as well, because that's when rangers unlock level 3 spell slots, makes this an absolute trophy of a spell. Imagine playing for 70 hours straight. You get to level 9 and are all excited about finally unlocking those powerful level 3 spells, which for a ranger is the maximum level spell by the way, and in return you are rewarded with this. This thing is uninstall worthy. Complete garbage. Bad damage, doesn't scale with your main ability, has a terrible range, and the funny thing, you only have a limited use of it because you only have a few level 3 spell slots in the first place. And if you want a good AoE type of ranged attack and are getting high levels of ranger anyways, why wouldn't you just use Volley, which is like a million times better in both damage as well as range, and it does scale properly and it isn't a scuffed spell but an actual attack, so you can use it with the extra attack feature without being limited. Anyways, I'm digressing. The sodium levels are getting too high, we need to proceed forwards. While using Conjuring Barrage has routinely been advised for gaming addicts to get rid of their addiction, it honestly might not even be the worst spell when Contagion exists. Contagion is a level 5 spell, so late game territory. It's supposed to make you gasp, it's supposed to be thrilling, right? No. The only thing it does is make you contemplate your life choices. It's a level 5 spell that gives you disadvantage on a chosen target for checks related to an ability of your choosing, NCC in addition or an additional effect. Now, the second part of the spell can potentially be interesting, but it's gated behind the fact that your enemy needs to fail 3 saving throws in 3 different turns before it's applied, and if the enemy instead succeeds 3 times, it recovers. So the fact that a level 5 spell that is relatively exclusive to a few classes can't even guarantee a pretty standard and mundane CC effect in itself is just terrible. The guaranteed part then, the application of disadvantage, is like a level 1 or level 2 spell effect at most, which makes Contagion just insanely underwhelming. underwhelming like Circle of Death. Now, I can be very short about Circle of Death. It's a level 6 spell, so yet again a late game banger that has 8d6 damage, which is just a standard amount of damage, I guess. Nothing impressive about it, but its diameter is huge. So good luck not hitting you or any of your teammates when you try to use it. What makes it truly bad, however, is that you have to target an enemy with it to get it off in the first place, which limits its usages to use its full strategic AoE potential severely, making it just a worse spell than an upcasted fireball in literally every aspect. Circle of Death, no thanks, I'll stick to my balls. Barkin is a simple spell. It gives you armor class, so it's innocent, right? No need to bash it, leave it alone. No, we're going to tear it apart. There's a variety of reasons why it's included here. Reason being one, it only gives you 16 armor class, which you will 99% out of the time supersede normally anyways, even if you don't use armor at all, like with a sorcerer for example. Then number 2, its effect counts as armor, so if you're playing as a class that benefits from being unarmored, like a monk, which gets unarmored defense and other benefits, it negates that. What makes it truly irredeemable is reason number 3. It has yet again the curse of the concentration. It's a concentration spell. There is no world where you want to use this to fill in a spot of the limited number of concentration spells that you can use in combat. While Barkin sets the bar very low for a spell, we still thankfully have Good Berry. Good Berry can be really terrible, as it has a range of 1 to 4 in healing you. Even if it heals you for 4, it's still bad, because it's just not significant enough to be meaningful, and you can pretty much get infinite healing potions in the game anyway. So in what world do you want to use this? If you cast it in combat, it requires an action to make it, and eating one requires a bonus action. Because the die that you use to roll its effect is quite small, you will heal 1 or 2 all the time, making it overall just an incredibly lackluster spell, and using a bonus action to heal for 1 is just the worst. However, there's always an upside, right? Because you can use it as camp supplies if you are a sociopath, as 1 berry counts for 1 camp supply. So if you're willing to cast it 20 times, waste all your spell slots to get a full long rest on tactician mode, hey, you do you. And I'm going to do me and group Charm Person, Protection from Energy, and Feign Death together, because these spells are so uninteresting, giving them their own segments would make you fall asleep instantly. Charm Person is just too niche inside of combat, and it giving your enemies benefits makes it unreliable as well. And outside of combat, just use Friends, which does exactly the same thing, but is a cantrip instead, and thus doesn't waste a spell slot. Protection from Energy is just way too situational, and then it's a level 3 concentration spell at that as well. And Feign Death is just too bad. It's a level 3 spell that is just directly outclassed by many other strategic options that you have in combat, like using Sanctuary if you want to protect your allies, or healing your allies, or just resurrecting your allies if things go south. Like, there's no real use case for this spell. Honestly, these spells are really bad, but there's still an utopia where you might potentially find a use case. The spell that I'm going to be talking about next, however, is so bad I need to put a disclaimer on screen for it. Please proceed at your own caution, and before you do, like, subscribe, do that stuff right now, because otherwise in your next playthrough you're going to be confined to only using the spells that were mentioned in this video. A fate you don't even wish upon your worst enemies. The mystery spell worthy of a disclaimer is going to be Grasping Vine. This thing is honestly just a meme. When I tried it out for the first time, I thought I was just getting pranked, and I was searching for cameras around me in my room. So what it's supposed to do is you conjure this Grasping Vine that can pull things to it essentially. So its use case is like really boring and niche in itself already, but what's hilarious is that this thing is a level 4 spell, so you would think it should be at least somewhat decent, but it just gets worse and worse, because it also has a whopping 6 HP while being a concentration spell. So you even getting to use its very mundane effect is rarer than catching a shiny Mewtwo in Pokemon Red, while simultaneously your house is getting hit by a meteorite, while simultaneously you're getting it up the bum by Santa himself. It's going to die literally every second. Every time you cast it, expecting a different outcome like a psycho, it dies within the same millisecond you press the cast button. Mix literally every bad thing together and you just get this. There's no hope for the spell, and I'm sorry for the tree lovers out there. But thankfully I can disappoint you even more with today's winner. Now you guys probably know which spell has been saved for last. True Strike. A spell so bad it has been the controversy for years and years, and people have been discussing it over and over to find an answer to the question bigger than the origins of life. What's the purpose of this spell? How does something so bad as this thing even exist? We still don't know it to this day, and it will require billions of funding and research to ultimately never find an answer. Why it's so bad is because it gives you advantage on your next attack roll, making literally every single other option in the game a better choice. Advantage just means you roll 2 die instead of 1 to determine your roll. So why wouldn't you just attack twice and have the chance to actually hit twice instead of using this, skipping your turn to ultimately maybe attack only once? It doesn't make any sense. And that's literally what this spell does. It should just read skip your turn and be miserable. This video has made me sad, very sad, and I'm going to cry in a corner now. Goodbye.